Hi there. Welcome to this edition of Afro Perspectives. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the sudden rise in the number of deaths in the Zimbabwean military, both serving and retired military personnel, mostly senior officers with the rank of general. Before I start on the discussion itself, I would urge you to subscribe if you have not yet done so, or give me some likes. The succession of generals succumbing to their deaths in mysterious circumstances is far from the usual story of succumbing to the ravages of disease. To give you a bit of background, we'll have to scroll back in time to 2 years ago. On the 8th of July 2021, Zimeye, a leading online news portal focused on issues concerning Zimbabwe, reported on the deaths of 6 generals involved in the November 2017 coup. The headline read, 6 military generals who have died after propelling Mnangagwa to power, but no further details accompanied the image. Zimbabwe, it has to be remembered, at that point in time, it was dealing with the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. And while the causes of death for these generals may have varied, COVID-19 was the common factor. Since its founding in the 1960s, Zimbabwe's ruling party, Zanu PF, has lacked democratic processes for leadership selection. Power struggles within the party often involved unbridled use of violence, with assassinations and staged car accidents being common methods for resolving succession disputes. Among the 6 generals, Douglas Nyikayaramba was a staunch supporter of Robert Mugabe, and after the 2017 coup, he shifted his loyalty to Emerson Mnangagwa. As a reward for his role, Mnangagwa appointed Nyikayaramba ambassador to Mozambique. Another key figure was Sibusisiso Moyo. To the rest of the world, he was the public face of the November 2017 coup. On the 15th of November 2017, he appeared on ZBC television to announce that the coup aimed to remove criminals surrounding Mugabe, but not Mugabe himself. Of course, this was not true, as we all came to know the truth later on. Mnangagwa rewarded Moyo by appointing him Minister of Foreign Affairs. Terence Shiri was perhaps the most controversial of the group, known for his involvement in the Gukurahundi massacres in the early 1980s. Shiri played a key role in the November 2017 coup alongside Constantino Chiwenga. For his part, Mnangagwa rewarded Shiri with the post of Minister of Agriculture. Although included in the Zimeye article, Major General Trust Mugova did not play a direct role in the 2017 coup. However, as the former Chief of Staff of the Zimbabwe National Army, he would have been aware of the plans for a coup. Mugova had been sent to the African Union Standby Force in Addis Ababa earlier in 2017 by Mugabe, who was growing increasingly suspicious of the military. Another key figure was Paradzai Zimondi. Earlier on in 1997, when he was just a major general, he was reassigned from his military position to lead the prisons services. He was also a member of the Joint Operations Command, a secretive group used by Mugabe to prevent the opposition from gaining power. The 6th general mentioned in the Zimeye article is Lieutenant General Ezai Chimonyo. In November 2007, while still a major general, he was appointed as Zimbabwe's ambassador to Tanzania in Dar es Salaam. He remained in this position until December of 2017, well after the coup had taken place. Following the coup, Emerson Mnangagwa promoted Chimonyo to Lieutenant General and placed him in command of the Zimbabwe National Army. I have provided this background to suggest that the deaths of these 6 generals, as I have said earlier on, were likely due to COVID-19. However, all 6 of them, like I have said in the foregoing, were members of the Joint Operations Command, a secretive organization composed of the military top brass. Its chief function is the execution of sensitive operations. Before delving into the recent page of Zimbabwe's military leadership, it's important to briefly examine how assassinations have historically been used to resolve succession disputes within Zanu PF. I will focus specifically on high-ranking Zanu PF officials for purpose of space and brevity. Zanu PF was founded in 1963 by Reverend Dawaningi Stole, who hailed from the Ndau ethnic group in eastern Zimbabwe. I mention his ethnicity because it is relevant to later events in Zanu PF's history, particularly regarding the fate of Herbert Chitepo, Zimbabwe's first black barrister. Chitepo, from the Manyika ethnic group, became chairman of the Zimbabwe Revolutionary Council, the external wing of Zanu PF, in 1973. However, his leadership was contested by the Karanga elements who formed the largest faction in Zanu PF. On March 18, 1975, Chitepo was assassinated by a car bomb in Lusaka, Zambia. A commission of inquiry put in place by President Kaunda attributed the assassination to the Karanga faction within Zanu PF, highlighting their internal power struggle over leadership of the Zimbabwe Revolutionary Council. Despite its fight for independence under the slogan "One Man, One Vote," Zanu PF has never embraced open elections or democratic processes for choosing its top leaders. This tendency to eliminate rivals through assassinations or staged accidents explains the death of Josiah Magama Tongogara, one of Zimbabwe's most charismatic leaders, who many believe should have led the country after independence. Tongogara, the leader of Zimbabwe's military wing, Zimbabwe African National Liberation Army, ZANLA, clashed with the political leadership of Zanu PF when he suggested a government of national unity with Joshua Ngomo's ZAPU to lead the country after independence. When Zanu PF's political leaders learned of Tongogara's plan, they reportedly hired a German assassin who specialized in staging car accidents. In his autobiography, Winds of Destruction, Colonel Peter Bauer, a former Rhodesian Air Force pilot, provides a detailed account of the plot, naming prominent Zanu PF figures who contributed money to a collection fund whose purpose was to finance Tongogara's elimination. Ultimately, Tongogara died in a staged car accident on Boxing Day 1979. He was on his way from Maputo to Chimoio. As I have discussed earlier on, the political culture in Zanu PF has never fostered open and democratic contests for leadership positions. After independence, young and ambitious politicians often discovered that they had no option but to fit into the framework established by the Zanu PF elite, which was more conducive for a one-party dictatorship. Unlike in more democratic countries where those with opposing views can form opposition parties, Zanu PF offers no such outlet for its talented or those with opposing views. Take for instance the case of Chris Wusheokunze, a former Minister of Industry and Commerce. He died in mysterious car accident in 1994 at Surusiri, about 110 kilometers from Bulawayo on the Harare Road. He was 49 at the time, and he had made the fatal mistake of openly disagreeing with Mugabe on economic policies. Another rising star in Zanu PF was Zorore Duri. During the mid-1990s, he defied the party's bosses by running for and winning the chair of the Manicaland province against Kumbirai Kangai, a favorite of the elites in Zanu PF. He was eventually killed in a car accident on the Harare Mutare Road in 1996. Morven Mahachi, the Minister of Defense, also died in a car accident in 2001 on the Mutare Nyanga Road after attending a Zanu PF meeting in Manicaland. It was only 8 years down the line in 2009 when Enos Ngala, a founding member of Zanu PF, disclosed that Mahachi was eliminated because of his opposition to Zanu PF's looting of diamonds from the Democratic Republic of Congo, while at the same time claiming to fight a war. For the first and 2 decades of independence, military generals stayed out of Zanu PF factional contests. However, that changed from 2005 onwards. Paul Armstrong Gunda, a brigadier general and a veteran of the liberation of the 1970s, died in 2000 after his car allegedly collided with a train on the Harare Marendera Road. In a sign of things to come, Gunda was one of those generals accused of a failed coup plot to topple Robert Mugabe. As I have said earlier on, these examples illustrate how Zanu PF deals with internal factionalism and those considered a threat to key political figures. Although Solomon Mjuri was keen to stay out of politics and instead he wanted to concentrate on farming, he was sucked into Zanu PF's factional fights through his wife Joyce Mjuri, who was the vice president under Robert Mugabe. Solomon Mjuri died in a fire at his farmhouse under mysterious circumstances on the 15th of August 2011. In the light of the foregoing, the recent deaths of generals from 2020 to 2024 highlight the growing factionalism within Zanu PF. Before 2017, the G40 faction led by Grace Mugabe was openly contesting Mnangagwa's faction, the Lacoste, on who would take power after Mugabe. Now, there is a military-aligned faction within Zanu PF, often referred to as the Coast-Lake faction, named after a company set up to exploit diamonds during the Democratic Republic of Congo's war in the late 1990s. This faction is made up entirely of retired military personnel cashing in on their status as veterans of the Liberation War of the 1970s. This faction, led by Constantino Chiwenga, sided with Mnangagwa's Lacoste faction in 2017, believing they would benefit if the G40's faction were taken out of the equation. The Coast Lake faction controls the military's chain of command and executed the November 2017 coup. However, this has resulted in a Zanu PF with two factions, Coast Lake and Lacoste. The military itself, it has to be taken into account as a vast business empire and has its own interests to protect. From the beginning of the millennium, the opposition, the movement for democratic change led by the late Morgan Tsvangirai, had long called for security sector reforms. It advocated for a professional officer corps accountable to a civilian leadership. The recent suspicious deaths of senior military officers appear to be a crude attempt to purge the military of generals involved in politics, those aligned to the Coast Lake faction. Zimbabwe's security apparatus consists of the Central Intelligence Organizations, the Prison Service, and the police, while the military includes the Air Force and the Zimbabwe National Army. The two branches of the military contain the chain of command holding the power to use force to remove a government. In 2017, during the coup, the general sat beside Chiwenga during negotiations to remove Mugabe. These same figures are now mysteriously dying one by one. It does not take a genius to figure out what is happening and who is behind the whole shenanigans. However, at the heart of the issue is the lack of democratic transitions in Zanu PF as a political organization. A more civilized approach to contesting for leadership positions within Zanu PF must be found. On social media, commentators have compared the page of senior officers from both the Army and the Air Force to war zones such as Ukraine. Although various figures are circulating in social media on the number of generals who have died in the recent past, reliable figures are hard to come by. I've done a search on the Google search engine. I keyed in the search terms burial, followed by heroes, Eka, and the general. For the 2.5 month period spanning July 2024 to the date of this post, 6 generals were buried at the heroes Eka. That translates to one senior officer dying within a space of 2 weeks. The generals were Brigadiers General Shadrack Dagambi, Michael Chaminuka, Elasto Madzingaira, Daniel Mtsunguma, Shadrack Veja, and as well as Patrick Zimondi. 2 of these, Veja and Zimondi, were involved in car accidents. I have to admit that Zimbabwe is not at war. However, one has to take into account that the generals in the military have been at war with the people of Zimbabwe from the 18th of April 1980 up to the present day. What I can only say is that the same generals who have been persecuting the generality of Zimbabweans are now at the receiving end of the same violence themselves. Thank you for tuning in. If you have anything to say about these issues discussed above, please drop a comment below. Thank you. Bye.